20 royal etiquette rules you never knew existed. Imagine sitting at a royal dinner. You're surrounded by kings, queens, princes, and diplomats. The food arrives. Everyone begins eating. But suddenly, the monarch puts down their fork. What happens next? You might think everyone simply continues eating. But royal etiquette can be surprisingly strict. From how you greet a monarch, to when you sit down, what you wear, and even how long a conversation may last, royal protocol has created a fascinating world of rules. Some written, some traditional, and some simply misunderstood. And today we're counting down 20 royal etiquette rules you may never have heard of. Some are still relevant today. Others have changed over time. And a few may completely surprise you. So stay until the end, because rule number 20 is one of the most misunderstood royal traditions of all. Don't assume you can touch a royal. One of the most famous principles of royal etiquette is that you shouldn't casually touch a member of a royal family. A handshake may be perfectly appropriate when offered, but an unsolicited hug, kiss, or arm around the shoulder can cross the line of traditional protocol. Today, royal families can appear much more relaxed than they did generations ago. But the basic principle remains. Let the royal lead the interaction. The greeting matters. Meeting a royal isn't exactly like meeting an ordinary person. Depending on the country and occasion, a guest may greet a royal with a handshake, a bow, or a curtsy. The important thing is understanding the context. And remember, royal etiquette varies between monarchies. British protocol isn't automatically Spanish protocol. That distinction is important when discussing the Spanish royal family. Don't turn your back immediately. At formal royal events, etiquette traditionally encourages guests to remain respectful when leaving a royal's presence. That doesn't mean you have to awkwardly walk backward across an entire room. Instead, the expectation is generally to avoid an abrupt or disrespectful exit. Modern royal events are much more relaxed, but the underlying idea remains. Respect the occasion. Dress for the occasion. Royal events often have very specific dress expectations. A state banquet is obviously different from a sporting event. A military ceremony is different from a casual public appearance. And a formal diplomatic event requires another level of preparation. This is why members of royal families can appear to have completely different wardrobes depending on where they are going. The clothing isn't just fashion. Sometimes it communicates respect, tradition, and the importance of the occasion. Follow the seating arrangement. At a formal royal dinner, you can't simply choose your favorite chair. Seating can be carefully organized according to rank, position, diplomatic importance, and the purpose of the event. Imagine discovering that the seat you wanted has already been assigned weeks in advance. At royal banquets, where someone sits can sometimes be just as important as what they say. Wait before eating. At traditional formal dinners, guests may be expected to wait until the host or senior royal begins eating. This simple rule prevents everyone from starting at different times. It also reinforces the hierarchy of the occasion. So if you ever find yourself at a formal royal dinner, don't immediately reach for the bread. Look around first. Watch the host. Here's a fascinating one. At traditional formal dinners, guests may observe the host's behavior to understand when the meal or conversation is moving to its next stage. And historically, the monarch's actions could carry particular significance. If the senior royal stopped eating, guests might understand that the meal was coming to an end. It's almost like a silent signal. No announcement required. Conversations can be carefully managed. Imagine talking to a king or queen. You have only a few minutes. What do you say? At formal royal engagements, conversations are often brief and organized because the royal may need to meet dozens, or even hundreds of people. That means you probably shouldn't launch into a 10-minute personal story. A short, polite, meaningful conversation is usually much more appropriate. Don't ask extremely personal questions. Royal family members are public figures. But that doesn't mean every personal question is appropriate. Questions about private relationships, family conflicts, finances, or sensitive personal matters can easily cross a line. A good rule is simple. Treat a royal with the same basic courtesy you would expect for yourself. Know when to stop talking. This sounds simple. But imagine meeting a famous royal and realizing that everyone around you is waiting for the conversation to end. Knowing when to politely finish a conversation is an important social skill. At a large royal engagement, the schedule matters. The royal may have another person waiting to speak with them, so sometimes the most impressive thing you can do is recognize the moment to say, "Thank you very much," and step away. Protocol can depend on the occasion. Here's something many people forget. There isn't one giant rulebook that covers every royal interaction in exactly the same way. Protocol can depend on the country, event, location, rank, and circumstances. A state visit is different from a school visit. A wedding is different from a military ceremony. And a private family gathering is obviously different from a diplomatic reception. So when you hear someone say, "Royals always do this," be careful. Royal etiquette evolves. The monarch's position matters. At formal events, hierarchy matters. Who arrives first? Who stands where? Who is introduced to whom? Who sits beside whom? These details can be carefully planned. For constitutional monarchies like Spain, these ceremonies can communicate the role of the crown within the state. The ceremony isn't necessarily about personal power. It's often about institutional tradition and representation. Royals are expected to remain composed. Imagine hearing something embarrassing in front of hundreds of cameras. Most people might laugh loudly or react immediately. Members of royal families are often expected to maintain composure. Even when something unexpected happens, the ability to remain calm can become part of the public image. And we've seen royal family members deal with everything from awkward moments to unexpected interruptions, while remaining remarkably composed. Public displays of emotion can be carefully considered. Royal families today are far more relaxed than they were in previous generations. But public appearances still require awareness. A royal engagement isn't simply a family outing. Every gesture can be photographed. Every expression can be analyzed. Every interaction can become tomorrow's headline. That's why royal etiquette often involves balancing authentic emotion with public responsibility. Don't forget the handshake. A handshake may sound ordinary, but timing matters. If a royal offers their hand, that's your signal to respond. The handshake should generally be polite and brief. No crushing grip. No dramatic shaking. And definitely no turning a formal introduction into a wrestling match. Sometimes the simplest greeting is the most appropriate. Royals can have their own traditions. Different royal families have different customs. Spain has its own traditions. Britain has its own traditions. Other European monarchies have their own ceremonial practices. This is why it's dangerous to copy something you've seen in a British royal documentary and automatically assume the Spanish royal family follows exactly the same rule. Monarchy doesn't mean identical etiquette. Cameras change everything. Modern royal etiquette has had to adapt to the digital age. A royal event today can be photographed from hundreds of angles. A single moment can appear on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and news websites within minutes. That means royal family members must operate in an environment where almost every public gesture can become content. The smartphone has changed royal etiquette forever. Social media has created new challenges. This is where traditional etiquette meets the modern world. Royal families now communicate with the public through official social media accounts. But those accounts are carefully managed. A royal family's online presence isn't usually treated like an ordinary personal account. Photos, captions, announcements, and public messages can all carry institutional significance. In other words, even the digital crown has etiquette. The rules are not always written down. This may be the most fascinating part. Some royal etiquette rules aren't actually written as strict laws. They can be traditions, expectations, customs, or simply accepted social behavior. That's why you'll sometimes hear conflicting explanations online. One person calls something a royal rule. Another calls it a tradition. And someone else says it isn't actually official protocol. The truth can be more complicated. And that's exactly why royal etiquette is so fascinating. The biggest rule: respect the institution. And now we reach the final rule. The most important principle behind royal etiquette isn't necessarily about forks, chairs, handshakes, or clothing. It's about respect. When someone meets a monarch or member of a royal family during an official engagement, they're participating in a formal event representing an institution. That's why etiquette exists in the first place. The crown is surrounded by centuries of history. But modern monarchies must also operate in a modern democratic society. And that means royal etiquette has to evolve. The Spanish royal family is a perfect example. King Felipe VI, Queen Letizia, Princess Leonor, and Infanta Sofia live in a world where tradition meets modern media. They appear at formal ceremonies. They meet ordinary citizens. They attend international events. They interact with young people. And they are constantly photographed. The challenge is balancing tradition with modern life. So, which of these 20 royal etiquette rules surprised you the most? Was it the dining traditions? The rules surrounding greetings? The importance of seating? Or the way modern social media has changed royal behavior? Tell me your answer in the comments. And here's another question. Do you think royal etiquette should remain traditional? Or should modern royals continue changing the rules? If you enjoyed this journey inside the hidden world of royal etiquette, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Because there are still plenty of fascinating stories behind the crown, and you may be surprised by what we discover next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.